Quilties. It is Karen Marchetti. This time on Dual Process, Jody Robinson and I are working on a Tennessee Waltz quilt. We're both going to have a simple version as well as complex versions. So grab your printable and let's get started.
Okay, for my simple version, well, first let me zoom in a little here. There we go. I'm going to do pretty much just a continuous curve and a meander, but I have to kind of be a little mindful of my path so that I get everything done, as much as done in one pass as I can. So I'm just going to start right here, and I'm going to continuous curve, making sure to hit all those points. I'm just going to put a little loop there, and then I'm just going to do my meander in here, come back to that point, and then do the loop and go back into my continuous curve. Now I missed something right here. I should have stopped and filled in here. So I'll just go back and do that now. If I were quilting this, I would have had to tie off, and that's no fun. So now I'm ready to cut across, because I want to fill this area with a meander, but I don't want to fill the whole area at once because I'm going to have to come back. So I'm just going to start my meander like this and just kind of fill half of it at one time. And I don't want to leave that straight line. Like, I don't want to leave a straight line across here because it'll be very noticeable. So what I'm going to do, come back and just fill some in like this. And I'm going to work on this block now that I'm here. Make sure not to miss that corner. And I'm sorry, I quilt way better than I draw, especially on a digital whiteboard. So it is a little messy. I do apologize for that. If you've drawn on a digital whiteboard, you know what I'm talking about. It's just real slippery. Okay, so I stopped here, so I'm going to come over here. I have to fill this one in with meander. And then I'm just going to work on this block. I'll do a little bit of this meander here. And you'll see on the next pass, we'll get the rest of that. So before I exit this block, I got to hit my center. I don't want to forget about that. Come down and do this one. And I did it again, right there. I could get that on the next pass, but let me just go in there and fill that in now. And it never fails. When you're quilting, no, at least me. I don't know if everybody does this, but at least I do that. I'll stop and think about something, and then I'll continue quilting, and I'll miss a whole section, and I'll have to do it, start and stop. So it helps if you're not always thinking about something else. So now I'm going to go back in and do the rest of all this meandering and get back over to that first block so that I can continue on my continuous curve. Loop in here, do that little bit of meander right there, because I'm figuring I can fit about that much in the roll, and I'm hoping to get that first little bit so I can do that meander. If not, you would fill in what you could. Do a loop here, make sure to get my center so I don't forget about it, and then do this corner. And a loop. Little meander right there, and a loop, and then finish out those last two. So then I would stitch down, and I would advance my quilt. Now on this one, I'm gonna stitch to here. I'm gonna just do that first continuous curve. I'm gonna meander all this, get to here, do that continuous curve. So you'll see how the path changes depending on which row we're on. Do that continuous curve. Now I could have done it from here, but I figured the way I've been forgetting it, I might as well hit it while I'm here. Fill all this in with a meander. And see, I missed that one from that point. But then again, I am talking. So from here, I'll start with this. Go into my continuous curve on this block. Uh-oh, now I'm stuck. You see that? Quick little hint, if you just meander over, echo what you've already done, you can get out of it. I'll do my loops, my continuous curve up here. And again, I forgot it. My brain just does not want to follow the rules tonight. So from here, I mean, you would think I want to travel straight across, but if I keep doing this block, I'll be stuck over here where I started. So what I'm going to do is while I'm here, I'll fill in this meander. Now I got one more chance to get this. There we go. Almost forgot it again. Just keep filling in that meander, hitting those corners as we get to them. One more chance, right there. Now we'll finish up this block. Loop, a little bit of the meander right there. Another loop. Let's do the center so that we don't forget it. Come over here, do the corner. And then that last loop. So that was the second row. Now the last row I will finish out in probably in fast forward mode. So anyway, I would tie off right here, roll my quilt, and then start here. Okay, let me bring this back to full size. Whoops, too small. So anyway, there it is. It looks like a lot of quilting because this is just ink on a screen, but this is, I want to say 90% of my fast custom quilts, just like that, continuous curve and a meander fill. You could do any, loops or curves or swirls, whichever you wanted in those open areas. I just chose to meander it. So I hope you enjoyed that, and I'll see you back here in a bit for the complex version.
Hi everyone, it's Jody. For my simple version quilting plan for the Tennessee Waltz quilt, I've decided to kind of share a really easy, simple to do all over design, which goes fairly fast. And it's going to allow us to give some movement to this quilt. So I will do a very slight amount of marking. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to keep in mind, obviously, what my throat space is, because I want to make sure that I can, get a couple of passes at least, or if you want to do it larger, at least one full pass in where I can reach. And so what I'm going to do is go ahead and just mark kind of a random wavy line. I'm going to leave the top straight because I'll stitch up to the top. But I'm just going to kind of come in here and mark this random wavy line. And you can do this as you go, or beforehand. I usually like to kind of do it ahead of time just because then I don't have to think too much about it or be able to tell that I'm making them the right size once it's loaded. So I'm going to go ahead and mark this whole thing. And I'm not concerning myself too much with, you know, where they fall, how even they are, because I want them to be random. So what we're going to do at this point is, you know, we have our quilt loaded, and I'm going to assume that I can reach kind of this one and this pass. So we'll go ahead and on the top pass, you can add anything in here that you'd like. I'm going to do kind of a just a back and forth line. What I mean by that is this. You could use a ruler if you really wanted to make them perfect. And so what I'm doing is going up to the top edge, and then I'm using that marked line as kind of just a boundary to know where to end these. I'm just going to work my way across the quilt. Now when I get to the end here, I'm just going to go ahead and scoot down if I know that I can reach the second section, and I'm going to assume that I can. And I'm going to start doing the same thing. This time I'm using the top and bottom wavy boundary. Gosh, it's kind of messy. And the other thing to keep in mind with this is that you can add anything in here you want. If you wanted to do like ribbon candy would be nice, or the very similar kind of wishbone stitching. Now at this point I am probably going to need to advance my quilt. So I would go ahead and do that, and we'd be looking now at this as the top. And again, we're going to just repeat this same process. We're just going to add this back and forth line. I'm not worried about keeping the spacing perfect. Actually, I prefer to do it kind of really random. Then there's no need to, you know, concern yourself with how perfectly spaced they are. And I'm going to do the same thing. So for each of the remaining passes, as I go through the quilt, I'm going to use the two wavy lines as my boundary. So I'm going to just start doing that again, and we're going to work our way across the quilt, staying between those boundaries. If you go over a little bit, it really doesn't matter, because once those marks are gone, nobody knows that they were there. And your stitching would probably be much neater than my drawing. Get to the edge, I'll travel down, and I'll just work my way through the rest of the quilt doing this same thing. Now when I come to this last part, I'm going to do it just like I did the top, and so I'm going to use this curvy line and then just stop at the bottom. If you want, you could also choose to go off the edge to kind of make it look as though, by that I mean you could stitch a little bit off the edge, because then it would look like it continues on if you have extra backing and batting. And it's as simple as that. It's a really nice, it goes very fast. This works really well, especially if you have some super busy fabrics where you're not really, you know, in this case, you wouldn't see custom quilting. So I hope you enjoyed that, and you might give that design a try.
Okay, so now it's time for the complex version. Let me zoom in here. And again, it'll be two different passes because the rows are different. This one starts with the pieced block, and then you go to the open block. Well, I guess they're both pieced, but you know what I mean. Okay, so on this one, it's more of an open custom design, I guess you'd say. I'm still doing some continuous curve, but I'm filling in these open areas with a much more custom quilting. So I want to start over here, right in this little area, because this is only a partial block, so that will get treated a little bit differently. And I don't know why, but my brain likes to start with that big open area first. So from here, well, I should start. I would have marked this, my centers, of these big open areas just so that I hit them correctly. I can finish that as we scroll down. So I would have pre-marked this before I started quilting it. Just in a blue marking pen or chalk, depending on the color of the fabric. So I'm going to start here, and I would use a ruler for this, but I'm just going to draw it. So I'd stitch over to the center, and down, back up, over to here. Now, when I get over here, I could finish my center block and then tie off, but while I'm here, I'm going to stitch in this block. And the design is very similar to my simple version. So we're going to just do a couple continuous curves. But when I get to this corner block, I'm going to do a triple loop like that. And you'll see why. It's part of a secondary design that you can't see yet. And I'll go back into my continuous curve loop. Now here's one of those partial blocks. So I'm going to kind of stitch up, over, down. Okay, just like that. And that's all I really need to do in that partial block, because essentially it's this area right here of the main design. And you'll see as I keep going how it all comes together. So again, a loop, stitch up, cut through, stitch back, finish out that continuous curve. And right here, I missed it. Okay, so we're going to pretend, here we go, I'm ripping out. Whoops, so I had to rip a lot out. That's okay. I got to talking and I forgot what I was doing. Okay, so we're going to do a loop, stitch up, come down, stitch back, loop. We'll do this continuous curve here. When we get to here, we're going to do that triple curl. Fill that in. Come back up to here, loop. Let's fill in the center while we're here. And we're not going to forget about it this time. I'm going to do it. And I'm doing this one as well. And a loop. So now I'm back to my main design. I'm going to come back, go up here with a ruler, cut across, come back. So now I'm going to add just a swirl in there. So you see how, remember I told you this area right here equals this. So since it's the outside point, you don't know that the swirl isn't there. Okay, so now on this one, we just kind of have to improvise that swirl, even though we don't know where this line's going to be. You just kind of eyeball it. And when we come back, and then we'll stitch out here. Now we'll fill in this block. So we're going to loop, do our continuous curve, do our triple loop here. Again, do that ruler work. Come back over here, do our loop, do the points of the ruler work. Our continuous curve over here. Stop right there because we're going to do our triple loop. Continuous curve in the center. Finish out this corner. Triple loop. Triple loop. Whoops. Got a little carried away there. Missed that one. Okay, so that would be the first pass. Okay. And again, I've actually quilted this design on a quilt, and ask me how many times I have missed these triple loops where I've had to stop, tie off, go back to it, and fill it in. It happens. It happens to the best of us. There's nothing you can do about it. If you have a short attention span, it happens a lot more often than not. Okay, so then we're going to do our roll, advance that quilt, finish marking this out. Okay, so now I'm going to start on here. It's just easier for me to start with the full ruler work, you know, from here to here, than to try to figure out this side and come in. If you can do that, more power to you. It'll be, you know, great, because if you can just go left to right, I can't. So I'll start here, come in with that ruler, come down, come back up, over to here, down, back, up to there, and down. And now we'll fill in our curls, swirls, whatever you want to call them. And this is the one where we have to just fudge it and guess, and then stitch out. So now we'll fill the center block. Now those triple loops are already done, so we're okay. I can forget about them because they're there. As long as I make sure to get the other ones on the bottom half, we'll be okay. So right here, I'm going to do the ruler work on this side. So now we'll come over to here, down, up, over, stitch down the seam, back out, up, down, do our swirls. Come back out, and then we'll finish this block. So you see this one over here, we'll have to wait until I'm doing this section. I have a 26-inch head, so this actually fits on my machine. If you have a smaller machine, you would have to do little, you know, partial rolls back and forth, but it can still be done. Okay, finish this up, not doing anything right there. Finish my center so that I don't forget about it. And then over to this corner, triple loop, triple loop, and then one more little swirl. One more little loop, sorry, not a swirl. Okay, so I'd tie off, and then I would advance, and I would do that last roll. So again, I'll start here, finish out my line. I would do the ruler work over, down, cut over. So, well, I didn't do my up. That's okay. However it lands, it's all good, as long as it all gets done. Come over and do my continuous curve over here. Do my triple loop in that corner. Do my partial ruler work here. And then come back over. Ruler work, up, loop, fill in the center. Ruler work, our continuous curve over here. Whoa, stop. Stop right here. Triple loop. So you'll see how many times just drawing it I've missed it. It just happens. It's how my brain works. So I do tie off and restart several times. Nothing wrong with it. It happens. And then stitch out, and now I'll finish this block over here. Doing that continuous curve and a loop and a loop. And then we'll do this one, do that triple loop. Do our partial ruler work out there. Finish this continuous curve over here. Loop, partial ruler work, loop. Let's fill in the center. Finish out this corner. Do our triple loop. And then one more little loop. Okay. Zoom back down. Whoop, way too small. So that is the more complex version, and they are very similar. The block work is pretty much the same, other than this corner here, and of course the ruler work in the open areas. So I hope you enjoyed it, and have fun doodling on yours.
Hi everyone, it's Jody. This time we are going to work on a little more complex quilting plan on this Tennessee Waltz quilt. And for this one, I mean, you know, it's going to be cut a little more custom, not over the top, but you know, it is going to require some starting and stopping because we're going to have separate sections. So we are going to go ahead and put a design into each of these blocks, but I'm actually going to do that kind of last as we work through this. So I'm going to assume that I can reach like about to here. That would be like a block and a third. So that's going to enable me to do this whole open block, as well as then I'll advance to do these ones and these ones. And so what I'm going to do is start kind of at the top and focus on getting that top row done. And the one thing that we should talk about before we start is whether you're going to stitch in the ditch or not. And I feel like, you know, I tend to do it, especially on a custom quilt. Do you always need to? You really don't. That's entirely up to you. Perhaps you quilt for customers and they don't want to pay what it would cost to have everything stitched in the ditch. So that's going to kind of be on a per quilt basis, right? I mean, they could all be different. But I will tell you that I would stitch in the ditch around these stars, as well as these big sections. And I would do that kind of as I go, but I want to focus mainly on getting these other designs in. And you're going to notice, so I'm going to probably use those ditches to travel. So that's a nice reason to stitch in the ditch, because if you have stitched it all in a ditch first, that gives you places to travel. So what I'm going to do is we're going to do some continuous curve. So I am actually just going to start right up here at the top. And I'm just going to do basic continuous curve. So what that means is I'm going to just curve from this to this. Then I'll go ahead and I want to get as much done as I can as I travel. So I'm going to go down and back, over, down, out and back. It's a little wobbly, but so I do know that I also want to do it in this center. So when I'm at the point I'm at right now, I'm going to go ahead and jump in here and do this because I'm right there. I may as well complete it as I go. And then I can come out and continue on. I'll go ahead and close all of these up and I'll travel down because I have this one I need to do. Now, as we travel, I maybe should have told you the plan. So we're going to mark in a circle here because we're going to do a leaf wreath. So I would mark in these circles. So what that means is that these spots here on the sides, those are going to be leaves because those are points of an open area that we just are not seeing. So as I come to those, I will go ahead and fill that with leaves because technically where the rest of the block there would be leaves. And then I'm going to go ahead and continue with this continuous curve. I can travel right down the edge. Now, I also know that around these blocks in these little dark triangles, I want to put pebbles. So while I'm right here, I will go ahead and add those pebbles because I'm here. It's, and you certainly could go back and add all of those at the end. I just feel like it's really nice if you can have a plan to kind of work through. And then I will sneak along the ditch here, and I can pick right back up with my continuous curve. Again, I'm right here. I know there's going to be pebbling, but I'm going to hold off and I'll show you why. So I go like this, and now these are both dark. So I know that I'm going to pebble, so I can use those to get where I need to be. Oh, went in the wrong place there. And I'm also going to do this because I know this is going to be pebbles as well. And then right in here, I'll jump in here and do this continuous curve. Again, well, I can't reach that one, so I'm going to stop here. So I'm assuming that I'm this is where I'm going to roll. So I'll stop, do what I can. Now at this point, I do need to travel. I need to get up to the top or over here. So this is closer. So I'm going to go ahead and travel here. And I'm just going to keep working through this. Again, I know there are going to be pebbles in this dark one as well as this one, and I can reach these, so I'll go ahead and put them in now. I get up to here, I'll go ahead and add that continuous curve. And I mean, it might seem a little bit confusing, but once you get going on it, I think you kind of get the flow. Even I know myself, it usually takes me a pass or two to get to where it's just flowing easier. And then as I'm traveling on this seam of the star, I'm going to go ahead and do this. Oh, I did that in a totally different pattern. Then I'll travel out. And because I know I still need to get over here, I'm going to go ahead and use these pebbles to get up to the top edge of the quilt. And I can use that to travel and go ahead and get this done before I forget about it. So I can start in here, whoops, and I can do my continuous curve. And then travel again along the top to get back over here. And then because I'm at the top of the quilt, I do want to remember, and you'll notice over here, I totally forgot to add in my little leaves. So I will need to go back and do that. But I'm here, so I do know that these leaves need to be in here. And now I can do this side. Travel down here, and we know that there need to be some leaves in here because that's kind of part of a circle that we're not seeing. And then I will go ahead and complete these last two little sections because I'm here. Maybe at this point I drop in, do my pebbles, pick back up with the continuous curve. And at this point, that's as far as I can reach in this pass with all of those extra things. So I'm going to go ahead and tie off, and I'm going to come back up here to the top, and I will add in these leaves. And now we're ready to do this open block. So as you can see, I've marked in, a circle. And I'm not actually going to stitch that circle. You certainly can if you would like to grab a template or something to aid you in stitching a perfect circle. I generally prefer to mark that perfect circle. Not that that one is. And what's going to happen is I'll form this spine as I stitch. So I'm going to do the outside leaves first. And I usually like to start right about here. And I'll do one. And I'm going to take them out to the very edge. I'm going to do one bigger one that's going to kind of fill that big open space. And you can see as I'm stitching around and adding these leaves, if I make sure I come down to the center, I'm going to stitch that spine without me actually having to stitch the perfect circle. That one bigger one in there. Now at this point, I'll hop in and I just kind of imagine, you can go and give yourself a little X. So you're just shooting to make sure you get leaves to fill in the whole thing. And they're going to twist and turn, and there will be way less leaves on the inside just because there's less space. Then I'm going to tie off, and I will advance my quilt at this point, and I will continue to do that same thing on this next pass. Okay, now that we've completed almost everything, we're on this last little leaf wreath. Go ahead and fill these in. And of course, you don't have to use leaves. You might want to use feathers or swirls or whatever design you like to do. And we're done. And a lot of times, you notice that I traveled in the seams, and when I do stitch in the ditch around like something like this, because these on point where we have the wreaths, they're pretty big. So a lot of times I will actually save it until the very end and then go back through the quilt, roll back through, and actually stitch this big seam all at once at the very end. So I hope you guys enjoyed that design, and we'll see you in the next episode. Bye. Thanks so much for joining us. We hope that you have enjoyed today's designs, and be sure to join us for the next episode of Dual Process.